everyone, if you want to get inspiration, motivation, and hacks about life, career, and writing, this is the channel for you. I am ERR Stories, and welcome to Life Thoughts and Inspirations TV. Hello everyone! Welcome back to Life Thoughts and Inspirations TV. I am ERR Stories, and today's conversations with ERR Stories is something really special because we will be talking to someone who's very vocal about her faith and her love for the Lord. In fact, she's very active with her different ministries, not only in church, our church, Church of the Evangel, UCCP, Church of the Evangel in BF Resort, but also back in her med school and currently also in her with her friends and also with her family members and the immediate community. But 9 days before she turns another year older last month, she got the plot twist of her story. I won't mention about that story anymore because I'll let her tell us about her story and her journey of faith during this time of quarantine. So without further ado, let me present to you our guest for today, no other than Dr. Jillian Reyes Ponio. Hello, Dr. Jill. There's the camera starting up there. Hi, how are you today,
Hi,
Dr.
good
Jill?
afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, how's life after that plot twist?
You know, it's been really different for all of us, I guess, since the ECQ, since this whole pandemic blew up. But all I can say is God's been really good. So life has been really full of blessings and full of hope. So I'm good. So yeah, I've been good. I've been better. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. But our audience doesn't know yet that the plot twist we're talking about is actually you were diagnosed of having coronavirus, right? So,
Yes.
what did you feel when you learned about this, and how did you handle the situation?
Okay, so I'm a resident at San Juan de Dios Hospital. So I'm a pediatric resident. So we're really one of the frontliners in the hospital. We're one of the few doctors left to handle the cases. So we're really exposed to begin with. Just being in the hospital, we're really already exposed to the disease, and our mindset as residents is actually it's only a matter of time until one of us would be positive. So we're just actually on the lookout if we're gonna develop any of the symptoms. So the usual symptoms are cough, fever, colds, difficulty of breathing, loss of taste, sore throat, and even diarrhea, abdominal pain, or things like that.
Mhm.
So for us, it was really more of we were doing our work as usual, but we were on high alert if anything, we feel anything. And so for the ever since the ECQ started in March, we've been still
Mm-mm.
doing work until one of my co-residents, she was the first one to have symptoms. So she had
Oh.
fever, she had
Mm-mm.
cough and colds, and she was really not feeling well. So she was the first one of us to be tested and isolated. When her result came out positive,
Mm-mm.
in hindsight, all of us in the office were actually already having cough, colds here and there, body pains. So when the department found out that the first resident was positive, all the rest of us were tested because it's hard working. Even if you're asymptomatic or even if you have no symptoms, but you're positive, you're a threat to your patients, to the
Mm.
staff. So that's why even if we didn't have um, the symptoms that you would see on TV or whatever, even if we were actually pretty okay with only mild symptoms, because we were healthcare workers and we could possibly put others at risk. That's why we were tested. So I was tested on April 2.
April
So we
2.
found out. So it's really the whole month of April. So April 1 in the evening, we found out that my co-resident was positive. So April 2, all the rest of us were tested. And then immediately after we were tested, we were told to be quarantined in the hospital. So we were actually talking with our consultants. Can we do home quarantine instead? Can we
Mm-mm.
go home and wait for our results there since we're fine? But they said no. The best, the most ideal setup is still um, to be isolated in your own hospital rooms in the hospital and wait for your results. So if the test will come out negative, you'll finish the 7 days of quarantine. And if it's positive, then we'll work from there. So that was April 2. And
Mm-mm.
I called my parents. Actually, when we found out that there's a possibility that we could be positive, I was really worried about my family. Because prior to that, I was still going home.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, my parents, especially my dad's diabetic and he's already
Mm-mm.
senior citizen. My mom's hypertensive. My sister has asthma. So I was going home. So I might be fine. But if I'm a carrier of the virus, I could put my family at risk. So that's really what was
Mm-mm.
going on in my mind. What if I'll be fine with the virus, but what if I infect someone else and they become worse? So
Worse, yeah.
that's what concerned me the most. So I was like, okay, Lord, I know that you're gonna take care of me and my family, and whatever fears we have, I know that you will deal with it. So I'll just follow the protocol, the procedure, and just okay. So we all agreed to be isolated in the hospital, and I
Mm.
didn't expect that I would be there for the whole month because I didn't expect that be positive actually.
Yeah.
Out of all of my coworkers, I was actually the one who was feeling the most okay. I just had sore throat and occasional colds, which I usually have because I have allergic rhinitis. So I always have colds here and there. Um so I didn't think anything of that. So I was just thinking, I'm definitely negative. But of
Mm-mm.
course praying na I'm still praying that I'm negative so that means I didn't put anyone at
At
risk.
risk, yeah.
Yeah. So that was what was really going through me in my mind and talking with the Lord when I was first isolated back in April 2. And then um we didn't know how long the results were gonna take to be released, but we were since we're healthcare workers, we were prioritized. So I found out April 6th, so 4 days later, I found out that I was positive. So everything changed from there because being positive now, when I found out I was positive,
It's like the
uh,
verdict. You're positive.
yeah. So, well, according to one of my friends who is an internal medicine resident, he's he said it's only coronavirus, it's only COVID, it's not TB, it's not HIV, it's not AIDS, which is true, you
Mm.
know. But still, being in the hospital, we see a lot of patients come in and they get worse immediately, and then it ends up that it's COVID. So
Mm-mm.
when I found out that I was positive, a lot of things went through my mind. There are so many possibilities. So I could be isolated for longer than I expected. I could be worse than any day. And I could be fine until the end since it's just a viral infection. I didn't know. But in that morning when I found out, I was actually doing my Bible devotion, and God led me to Matthew 14,
Mm-mm.
the story of him walking on water. And what he said to the disciples, particularly to Peter, was, take courage, it is I. So do not be afraid, take courage, for I am here. So when he told Peter that in the story, it felt like he was telling that to me. So take courage, do not be afraid, I am with you. So when I found out that I was positive, I was like, okay, so this is the Lord telling me, this is why the Lord told me not to be afraid, because he was with me, because this was gonna happen. So that's the one thing I held on to. And it's really amazing how when you start your day, when you start your mindset with the Lord in it, it really changes your perspective. So given that my mindset going in when finding out that I was positive was that I didn't have to fear because the Lord was with me. So from then on, I knew that okay, so God was gonna do something about my faith and my trust in Him while being isolated. So I'm gonna make the most of that. So instead of being afraid of what could happen, that became my mindset being in the hospital.
So that's from April 6 up to April 30. You got the, or
Actually May until May 2.
until May
Yeah.
2. Okay, you were on your own. But you were alone but not lonely.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
because you have the Lord with you all throughout. It's nice.
You know, it's actually one of the things that we have right now with the ECQ is time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was isolated in the room, so we have no work, I couldn't work. So there was nothing much to do in the room. Well, there was a TV, there was that's about it. I had my phone, I had data. That's pretty much it. So I was really faced with limited things to do. But I realized, okay, so the time I've been wanting to spend with the Lord for so long, now I have that time. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I really look, I really enjoyed my isolation because I knew that I was never gonna get an opportunity like this again. I was just alone with the Lord. I did. I don't think I'm gonna ever get that 1 month again in my life.
Yeah, because
So
we're really busy, right? But with this quarantine thing, we have more
yes,
time to know more
yes,
ourselves and
exactly.
especially the Lord and our faith.
Yes.
Okay? That's good to know. You're correct. If you start everything like in the morning with devotion, and then eventually up to the late part of the night, it's really different, rather than starting it without the presence of God.
Yes.
Nice. We will be back. We'll just have a quick break and we will be back with more of this exciting story from Dr. Jill. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Life Thoughts. Welcome back, Dr. Jill. Okay, so earlier
So
you were saying that, it's more than actually more than 30 days to be exact, right? Alone time,
33.
33 days. Alone time with the Lord and in isolation. So what do you think are your, the message of the Lord for you? Like, what are your life realizations with this experience?
So I think there's like I can always summarize it with three learnings. The first one right off the bat that I really learned is how blessed we are and to count every blessing. Because when I was there in the hospital, I realized how we have so many blessings from the Lord that we actually take for granted because we have it every day. So I have actually a friend who's a nurse who also had COVID, but she was in the ICU and she really had a difficult time breathing. So as for me, I was like, I have COVID, but I could breathe normally. I could breathe fine. So I was thankful for every breath. And I imagined so many other people who were confined or hospitalized who didn't have their phones with them. They didn't have TV, aircon, no water, no food. Well, as for me, we were really taken care of by our hospital. So all these things that we never really appreciated or we just took for granted because we had it every day. I realized how important these things were. So it's really it's really amazing how the Lord provides our
Yeah,
daily
very
needs.
true. True.
How he provides without even us asking for it. He really takes care of us. So I think that's the first. And the most important thing actually that he taught me while I was isolated is the that his greatest promise and his greatest gift is his presence in our lives.
Amen.
Like I was reading through Joshua and Judges, and at the same time I was going through the Gospels while I was isolated. And it's amazing how the Lord would repeatedly tell his people to not be afraid because he was with them. So that's what he keeps promising us, to not be afraid whatever happens, whatever situation, whatever circumstance. We don't have to be afraid. He's not looking down on our situation and saying that that's not something to be worried about. But it's really more of, no matter what you're facing, you don't have to be afraid because I am with you. So I think that's, and I really felt that, especially when you're all alone.
Yeah.
You literally feel the presence of God. And as you said a while ago, I may have been alone, but I never felt lonely because the Lord was really with me, and He promised that to us, that He will never leave us nor forsake us. And I really felt that while I was isolated and reading through so many of the Bible stories of all the other characters in the Bible, everything they went through. And how the Lord really was with them. And there's always a line in the Bible that, for example, this character was successful because the Lord was with him. The Lord made him prosper because the Spirit of the Lord was with him. So it's really the presence of the Lord, how important it is. And again, when we were back in our old normal, because we're so busy with our work, with school, with all the things going on around, we tend to forget that the presence of the Lord is with us. And now that in quarantine, all of us are forced to really just take away all the distractions, all the unnecessary things. That's when everything that really matters comes up. So it's really the time that you have with the Lord, with your family, and the basic things. So that's really what He kept teaching me while I was alone, because I think He knew that by the time I would be ready to be out back into the world with other people, that would be something I could hold on to. So, and whatever I would be going through for the rest of the year, I can always go back to that time when I was alone with Him, and He really assured me of His presence. So,
Wow, very well said. Who among those Bible characters really can you associate your story with? I mean, those that you've read.
Since I was reading through Joshua, I really was able to associate myself with him. So the story of Joshua is, they were on their way to the promised land with Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Moses was getting old and fragile and frail. So he knew that he wasn't gonna make it to the promised land. So he assigned Joshua to lead the people on his behalf. So that's how the verses start off. Joshua being given that task of bringing his people to the promised land. There were so many verses where he specifically gave each tribe their own specific land in Canaan. So in the first 10 chapters of Joshua, God would repeatedly tell him, "Do not be discouraged, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will be with you wherever you will go." I think he mentioned it to Joshua around 8 to 10 times, actually. Because I was so amazed how many times he kept repeating it to Joshua that I actually tallied it. And then by the end of Joshua, when finally they got to the promised land, they were finally setting up camp back there. The book ends with Joshua challenging his people to choose this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So I guess it's amazing how God, the Lord first dealt with Joshua's fears and anxieties and assured him with his presence. So that finally, when he was strengthened, when he saw how the Lord worked in his life, he was able to encourage the people to choose the Lord, to choose to serve the Lord. And I really associated myself with that in the sense that the Lord strengthened my faith while I was in isolation, so that when finally I can go back to work and I can go back home, I can also be an encouragement to other people that choosing the Lord, choosing to serve Him is always worth it. So, I guess, yeah.
That's nice. Because maybe just a thought, no? Because in a way, you have everything. You have a very successful career, you have a good family, and everything else. And sometimes, when you minister, some people would think, anyway, she has everything. So she's really like feeling blessed, feeling happy. But with your life testimony now, the more that people will really be encouraged that, whatever their circumstance is, God is really with us, with you, no matter what, right? And yeah. Okay, anyway, before we end, there are some people who do not have the coronavirus, but
Yeah.
they are in a very troubling situation right now. Some of them, they've lost their jobs. Some of them, they have nothing on their table and everything else. They're in a very tight situation. What's your message for them?
Actually, my friend was talking to me about this the other day,
Mm-mm.
and she was asking for my advice as a physician, as a doctor, on how to deal with the current situation now. And I told her that really the only thing that God wants us concerned with is our relationship with Him. And He always promises that He's on top of things, that He's in control. If anything, what we really learn during this pandemic is that God is God, that He can do what He wants. His ways are not our ways, His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So, everything that's going on in your life, whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, God knows that, and He's on top of it. And the amazing thing is, we can have a relationship with Him through what Jesus did on the cross. Meaning, there is a way for us to be close to the heart of the Lord who made the heavens and the earth, the Lord who is in control of everything. So that's such a comfort for people, that someone who has power is close to you. Someone who has control and power loves you, knows your situation, knows your heart, knows what you're feeling, all your thoughts, all your doubts and concerns, and He actually cares. So if anything, it's really hard because how will the Lord provide for my food, for my job, for my family? Honestly, I don't know. But what I do know is that God will not let His people He will not let His people be in troubling times longer than they have to be. And that, again, his greatest promise is always His presence. So for those who are really having a hard time, especially with the situation, I pray that this will draw you closer to the Lord. This will encourage you to come to Him, to bring all these concerns, these questions, these feelings, come to Him in humility and in faith, and know that He listens, He cares, and that He will take care of you. And you can take it one day at a time. Honestly, don't worry that much about what's gonna happen in the future. As for me, I really don't know. I could still have COVID again. Actually,
Mm.
I could. Times are really tough, so there could come a day when I'm not gonna get paid for my job or whatever. And actually, right now, my parents have not been going to work for 2 months. So we're also really concerned about all these finances, how to pay for, because life goes on and then
Yeah.
jobs are halted. But just the fact that God knows your worries today, and then He gets you through it. You can get through it one day at a time and just continue clinging on to the Lord. And I know that He will not never let any of us down. He will never let us. He will never fail us. So I think that's really the only thing I could tell people. I could encourage them, because I know that myself, that God really cares about everything that we care about, and He promises to always provide because He's a good father. He really loves His children, and He will never leave us nor forsake us. So for everyone going through a tough time right now, bring these troubles to the Lord and just pour it out to Him. And I hope you get the comfort knowing that He listens, and I hope that you get through these times one day at a time. You'll and then you'll be surprised. You'll wake up one day, oh, it's been a year of God being good and faithful to me, and I didn't expect that I'd be going for this long, right? So it's really all about that. Just take it one day at a time.
Very well said. Thank you very much, Dr. Jill, for your time. And yeah, we got so inspired with your life story. In fact, yeah. You know, I'm teary-eyed though, because everything really is like touches the heart. And I really pray that this video, for all of you, everyone out there watching, just like what Dr. Jill has mentioned, live your live your life one day at a time with the Lord, right? Because these things will really happen. We have different problems, we have different challenging times, but we cannot do it on our own, really. It's really between us and the Lord. So there. And I'll share with you Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 17, which says, "For I will restore health to you and heal you of your wounds, says the Lord." So it's not only the physical wound, right, Doc Jill, but everything else, our emotional wounds, our spiritual wounds, the Lord will be able to heal us if we fully surrender. Thank you very much, Dr. Jill. Your life testimony is an inspiration. So thank you again, audience. Bye-bye, Doc Jill.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. God bless.
Thank you for watching my video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to your friends. And yes, always remember Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Bye-bye!